The Megalodon is one of the largest predators to have ever lived on this planet, so it's no wonder, although it's been extinct for millions of years, this creature still captures the imagination of people everywhere. Today we are diving into the evidence of how we even know that they once existed. Let's dive right into the warm, prehistoric waters as we cover the top 10 deep sea discoveries that prove the Megalodon existed. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the first discoveries. To start off with, we are taking it back to the Renaissance era. According to accounts from the time, there were discoveries of huge triangular fossilized teeth, but at the time these teeth were so big and they had no idea who or what they belonged to. Instead, people of the time thought that they were petrified tongues or shed teeth that belonged to snakes and dragons. I mean, with the size of these teeth, I truly do not blame people for thinking that they were proof of the existence of dragons. It wasn't until 1667 when the Danish naturalist Nicolaus Steno recognized them as the teeth of sharks, and it was then that he described his finding in the book The Head of a Shark Dissected, which also contained an illustration of the tooth. In our number 9 spot today, we have the feeding habits. While it's hard to learn much about the habits of a creature that has been extinct for as long as the Megalodon has, there are different and really interesting clues we can use to determine some of the things that were once a complete mystery to us, and one of those things has to do with their feeding habits. Of course, a creature that is slated to be as large as the Meg is going to need a lot of fuel. It's gonna need a big meal, and what better large meal lives in the ocean than a whale? That's right, one of our current largest creatures was a Megalodon delicacy. You may be wondering how we were able to figure this out, and that relates back to the finding of fossilized whale bones. These bones have been found with cut marks from Megalodon teeth etched into their surface. It is said that some of these bones even have nastier wounds, with the shark teeth actually still stuck in them from millions of years ago. Talk about an apex predator. In our number 8 spot today, we have the bite force. One thing scientists have been able to estimate about the Megalodon is what they think might have been the force that they could bite down with. So to set the stage, we of course need something to go on, unless you're already an expert in bite forces. Humans, our bite force is measured to be around 1,317 newtons. That doesn't seem too bad. Next, a great white shark, which seems to be quite the predator here currently on Earth. Their bite force is measured at about 18,216 newtons. That's definitely quite a jump from us as humans, but it makes sense. I mean, a great white can definitely do a lot of damage should it choose to. So now we have the Megalodon, one of the most powerful predators to have ever existed, the apex predator. Scientists estimate their bite force was between 108,514 to 182,201 newtons. A reminder that ours isn't even 1,500. It's discoveries like these that really put into perspective just how large and powerful this prehistoric creature really was. In our number 7 spot today, we have so many teeth. So most of the discoveries relating to fossils of megalodons that have been found are just teeth. There's so many teeth, and so little of really anything else that has been found. And that of course begs the question as to why? Well, apparently part of this is because sharks continuously produce teeth throughout their entire lives, and depending on what they eat, they often lose their teeth. Like, apparently it's so common that they go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime. Maybe I'm new to the shark game, but I had no idea. But of course, this means that shark teeth are constantly raining down to the sea floor, only to later be discovered, and in the case of megalodons, only to become a fossil first. The other half of why the teeth are so common is because teeth are the hardest part of a shark's skeleton. Sharks' bodies are made from a softer cartilage rather than bone, sort of like the stuff that our nose and ears are made of. This means that the chances of these things surviving all of these millions of years are slim to none. In our number 6 spot today, we have a fossil. Like I mentioned previously, it's hard to find any remains or fossils of megalodons other than teeth. Most of these remains have been lost to time, but that is exactly what makes this discovery so fascinating. A fossil found in Peru a few years ago is said to not only have been the discovery of a full set of teeth, but also a brain case and a small string of vertebrae, which is a very rare find. Aside from just being a relic from a time long past, this fossil could give us immeasurable insights into what these creatures looked like, more so than we know now, and it may even be able to uncover some of the secrets that remain hidden in the past. In our number 5 spot today we have their appearance. From when the existence of megalodons was first discovered up until quite recently, people believed that these sharks looked basically like a ginormous great white shark. Like most of us have seen Jaws, think of that shark. Or the 2018 classic The Meg. That's what people assumed they looked like. Turns out, based on what we now know, that's really not the case. These sharks would have had a much shorter nose than a great white, like a sort of flattened and squished one. It also would have had longer, like extra long pectoral fins, because when you're that big, you need all of the support you can get to navigate through the water. We thought that megalodons would look like great whites because we thought that they were related, but as it turns out, that isn't true. Megalodons actually come from a different lineage of sharks, and sadly, they were the last member of the lineage. In our number 4 spot today we have ancestors. Speaking of the life and lineage of megalodons, let's take a look back at what we know about their ancestors. The oldest definitive ancestor of the Meg is a 55 million year old shark called Otodus obliquus. These sharks grew to be about 9 meters or 30 feet long. This of course isn't where things stop though. The evolutionary history of this shark goes back to another ancestor called Cretalamna, which lived about 105 million years ago. This means that the lineage of the megalodon spans over 100 million years. That's wild. This is part of how they found out that megs and great whites weren't actually as closely related as once thought. Through more fossils that have been found, they've been able to trace this lineage, and in fact it is now believed that ancestors of great white sharks and the megalodon probably lived at the same time, and they were likely in competition with each other. Safe to say it would have been a pretty terrifying time to live in the ocean. In our number 3 spot today we have a cosmopolitan. One of the things that helps us to know that the megalodon existed relates back to how widespread they once were on Earth. It is said that this species was adapted to warm tropical and subtropical waters, but that means that they could be found basically on every continent except Antarctica, and we have found the teeth to prove it. Apparently the places where most have been found include the east coast of North America, and definitely in the bottom of saltwater creeks and rivers in places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. They are also said to be a common find for divers off of the coast of Morocco and in certain parts of Australia. They're even sometimes found in the UK, but this is definitely more of a rare sighting there. This is all to say that this proves to us that this was a species that was clearly thriving during their time here on Earth. It can be hard to imagine these prehistoric creatures, but in the history of our planet, they really aren't that long gone. In our number 2 spot today we have rings. One of the best preserved and most complete megalodon fossils or specimens finds its home in the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences Conservatories in Brussels. This includes a collection of 150 vertebrae that were found in the 19th century Antwerp, Belgium. When they were discovered, they weren't completely strung together, but they were found in the same layer of rock in the same location, which would make it fair to deduce that they likely came from the same animal. Using 3 of these vertebrae, researchers were able to find out the age and roughly the size of the shark when it passed away millions of years ago. They were able to do this because apparently on shark vertebrae they have sort of rings, like trees do. Like you can count the rings of a tree, and you can apparently do that for a shark as well, which will give you an estimate on their age. On this specific specimen they counted 46 circles in the vertebrae, which put the shark at roughly 46 years of age. This would have been quite young for a megalodon since they are said to have lived to be about 88 to 100 years old. Having this age estimate allowed them to also estimate the potential size of this megalodon, which they said was around 9.2 meters or roughly 30 feet. In our number 1 spot today we have Bye Megalodon. To cap off this list today, it only seems fair that we talk about what happened to the megalodon. If they were these huge, powerful apex predators, how did they die off, especially when other shark species have seemed to survive? We know that the megalodon was extinct by the Pliocene, which was 2.6 million years ago, and was when the Earth entered a phase of cooling. We of course can't know exactly the moment the last megalodon died, but right now it is believed that it may have been about 3.6 million years ago. The cooling of the planet is likely the biggest contributor to the demise of the Meg. egg. I mentioned before that they preferred warm tropical waters, and a drop in those temperatures would totally throw off the habitat that they once called home. This significant habitat loss, coupled with the likelihood of their favorite prey either also going extinct or adapting to cooler waters and moving where the sharks couldn't go, truly is a recipe for disaster for the good old Megalodon. Another big contributing factor relates to when they gave birth, which is thought to have happened close to the shore, which would provide a cozy, shallow nursery for their young that was free from predators like large whales. This is all fine and dandy until ice begins to form at the poles and the sea levels dropped, which means that the safe place where they once went to have their pups was now destroyed as well. Scientists believe that up to a third of large marine animals, which includes 43% of turtles and 35% of seabirds, became extinct as a result of the cooling temperatures seen millions of years ago. This affected and significantly dropped the number of organisms at the bottom of the food chain, which ends up being a huge problem for our giant apex predators. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!